Hello, friends. So after the written exams for B school entrances, the next round comprises what we call as personality assessment round. And within the personality assessment round, there could be various forms of assessment, and within them, interviews stand out as the most common, most frequent, and probably having the maximum weightage among the various different parts of the personality assessment round. Now, today's session is about the knowledge preparation you need to do, you need to focus upon to excel at interviews. Now, whatever we are going to discuss about the knowledge preparation regarding interviews will also have strong implications upon your preparation for group discussions and VAT. So now within the interviews, most of you would have gone through some sort of video, some sort of guidance from various experts. And if we collate them all, generally, there are 4 different skill sets, personality attributes, which are assessed during the post-written round. And these skills are communication skills. That means how well can you express yourselves, your clarity of thoughts. That means how clear you are about your goals, about your plans, and so on. Contextual awareness. That means how much aware you are about things around you, right? From country to your areas of interest and so on. And your conceptual depth. That means about the various degrees that you have taken or your school education. How clear about are you about the concepts that you have studied during your school days or during your college days? Our focus for today's session or today's video is going to be on the last 2 parts. As I said, this video is about what knowledge preparation should you work upon, what information, what facts should you gather to do well at interviews. So today's video is about last 2 ones. That means your contextual awareness and your conceptual depth. Now, sort of before we get into what elements you must prepare, let's just spend a minute on the understanding or realizing or assessing the background of any interview. Now, like any interview, an IIM interview will also have certain standards, certain pre-decided parameters on which you're going to be judged, you are going to be sort of assessed. At the same time, much like any other interview, an IIM interview will also evolve, and therefore you may be asked questions based on what answers you are giving. And it may also quite happen that the interviewer may find some sort of unrelated bit of information related with you and may ask you cross questions. So when we look at these, these standard and the evolving question types, we understand that there may be certain random themes, but our job is to first be ready with highly probable themes. What are the most probable areas from where we may be asked questions? So I've just tried to say that there may be certain aspects of your profile which may create interest and curiosity. We need to work upon those areas. At the same time, we need to find what aspects are there of anyone's profile from where there is a high probability of questions to be asked. So when we look at these, or when we understand, this context, the conceptual depth and contextual awareness, I've tried to give an acronym called CCA, can be divided into 5-6 parts. The first is awareness about or information about your personal background, then about your academic background, then about your professional background, and then about your societal or what is going on around you, and then about your goals. So we are going to take a deep dive into these 5 different dimensions, and we'll see what all things you need to collect, what all things you need to read, what all things you need to be ready with to do well on these aspects of the knowledge preparation. Now, let's start with the personal aspect of the CCA. CCA here, I mean like contextual and conceptual awareness. So when we talk about personal, there could be certain things which can be very cheeky, very repeated, and yet they may be asked during an IIM interview. So let's start with your name. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there can be a certain aspect of your profile which can be of interest, and there could be of importance. So although we are going to cover things of importance, we are also going to be looking into what aspects of your profile could be of interest or may generate certain curiosities on basis of which you may be asked question during an IIM interview. So let's start with your name. Now, if your name is Amit, Swati, Abdul, there's a lower chance, there's a lesser chance rather, that you're going to be asked any question around that. But suppose if your name is Republica, or like me, if your name is Avinashi, there's a very high chance that you may be asked a question as to why this name, what is the meaning of this name, what is the English word for this, Hindi or Urdu or any other name that you have, and maybe what is the relevance of this name vis-a-vis your personality, and so on. So I think it makes sense for us that if our names are slightly unique, slightly different from what is usually within our geography society, to go back and read about them. Now, the next thing that you need to be ready with as far as personal background is concerned is family. Now, again, you don't have to talk about everyone in your extended family. Often it is expected that you'll give a brief background about your family in a very short background. And suppose if your family members and close family members, meaning your parents, your siblings, are in army or in bank or in any other such area where you understand that there may be certain interest germinating from that answer or from you sharing those facts, then it's better to go back and have a look at it. For example, if your parents are in army, I think it's important to go back and have a quick look at it. What is the India's defense budget? Who is the chief of army staff, or who is a chief marshal? What is the position of CDS when it was established, and so on. So some of the very, very important thing, you don't have to get in depth of these things, but yes, if there are certain cursory information right at the top, if you would gather, I think you'll be at benefit. The next thing is your school. Much like the earlier 2 points, if your school is modern or Delhi public school, there's a lesser chance that you're going to be asked any question. But if your school's name is interesting, is fascinating, may generate certain curiosities, like a couple of examples I've written here, St. Andrews, Aurobindo, Swami Vivekananda School, or any such thing, then you may be asked as in who was St. Andrews, who was St. Xavier's, who was Maharshi Aurobindo, and so on. So again, go back to these things and just have a quick look at it so that at least you have some idea or some basic idea about these names. The next important thing about your personal sort of aspect of knowledge preparation is your hobby and interest. Now, there are a lot of things we do as recreational activity, right? We all chill out, we watch movies, we sometimes watch TV series. We may not passionately follow those things. These are more like, as I said, recreational activities. There may be, for some of us, certain things which we religiously follow. Some of us may be very passionate about, let's say, football. Some of us may be very passionate about reviewing movies or reading books or so on. So if there are few things and which you are going to anyway mention, then it makes sense for us again to have a to gather some basic information about them. So for example, if you're passionate about movies, it wouldn't harm if you'll collect information as to who was the last year's Academy Award winner, or which movie has won the maximum number of Academy Awards or Oscar, and so on. So based on your hobbies, it's advisable that you collect these basic pieces of information. The next thing is about your extracurricular activities. Now, of course, some of these hobbies may be related with your extracurricular activities, and some of these things could be sort of standing out as things that you may have done at your college or at your school. In that case, of course, it makes sense for you to go and revisit and again collect some basic information on the same. Now, let's come to your college, right? We went to school, now we are talking about your college. Again, if your college name is more generic, and in your own assessment, if you think that not many questions can be asked from that, or it does not generate any sort of special curiosity among the interviewer, you may not prepare about. But again, it is advisable that you have some sort of idea about when your college was established, or any such important things, such as a very prominent alumni from or alumnus from your or alum from your college, or some award winning great scientist from your college, or any brilliant writer from your college, and so on. So for example, if you're from IIT Roorkee, it has a very illustrated history from 1837, 1847, Thomson College of Engineering, and so on. So you may like to go back and just have a quick look at those facts. Similarly, if you are from, let's say, College of Engineering Gindi, if you are from any such a college which is known for certain things, for maybe because it is too old, or maybe because it has a list of very prominent alumni. So you may like to go back and collect those facts. The next thing is about city and town. Now, every city and town and almost every village in India has its own story. There are some unique facts about such places. And you'll find that in almost every town and city in India, there may be a at least at local level, a famous monument, or maybe a famous sweet, or maybe a famous eatable, or something that, or maybe a gift item, a craft item, and so on. So, for example, Saharanpur is famous for wooden work, Muradabad is famous for metal work, and so on. So, I would suggest that go back to your city, open its Wikipedia page. You'll find a brief description, maybe a little bit about any prominent historical history. For example, the place that I come from, called Buxar, is very famous for Battle of Buxar, and before that, Battle of Chausa. Similarly, if you belong to a city or town which is known for certain things, it's important to go back and collect those facts and read about them. Do not try and memorize them in a very, very rigid manner. I would suggest that you read them in a very natural manner. Read those sort of lines or those facts a couple of times. I think that'll be sufficient. Now, after having covered your personal aspect of information or knowledge preparation, let's move on now to your academics, a very, very important part. Now, whether you have work experience or you are a fresher candidate for these IIM interviews, whether it is at IIMs or any prominent B school, there is a very high chance that you're going to be asked question on academics. Now, I've seen thousand students who feel that since they are going for IIM interviews, the chances of being asked academic-based questions, those chances are very lower. No, it doesn't exist like that. I mean, there's no such sort of scenario. You are probably going to be asked at least one or two questions on academics, and therefore it makes sense for us to prepare on academics as much as we can. This is particularly important for students who do not have work experience or students who are freshers. So let's divide the academic, aspect of knowledge preparation into 4 or 5 parts so that you have absolute clarity as to what all that you have to prepare. The first aspect is theoretical aspect of knowledge preparation, that is theoretical aspect of academics. So, we are talking about some prominent chapters from prominent topics from the degree that you have taken at undergrad level, some common definitions. So, for example, what is the third law of thermodynamics, or what is the relevance of Boston Tea Party? I'm sure history students could, find the answer of that question, or such fundamental questions which are anyway expected to be known by any student graduating from that specific degree. So I'm not saying that you get into UG courses to a level that you are not able to cover up other aspects of knowledge preparation, but it's important, and I'm repeating, that your basics and fundamentals must be clear. And for a practice purpose, you can make a list of 100 important questions from your UG degree. You can access such compilation of questions provided by various institutes, degree-wise compilation of questions, and you can go through them to figure out where you're standing. But make sure that you are ready with this. This is extremely critical for excelling at interviews at IIMs. The next thing is information about, or facts about, or knowledge about the activities that you have done at a lab or at during practicals. So, for example, this is particularly important for students from science and technology background. So, for example, what is a litmus test, or how does a specific machine work when you are doing or when you are working in a lab during, let's say, your physics lab or your electronics lab, and so on, or some of the other activities that you may have done as a non-science, non-tech student. For example, what are different methods of primary interview or primary research, such as one-to-one interviews and so on. The third aspect of academics, which is again very critical, is your project and internship. So let's say you have done a number of projects, or one or two projects, have done an internship. So it's very important to go back, look into the fundamental or theoretical aspects of that project. It's also important to look at some of the findings that you have figured out during your internship, your learning during your internship, your learning during your project work, and also make sure that if your internship title has some buzzwords, then you are absolutely clear about those buzzwords. We have seen a number of times that students write or they may already have such very sort of fascinating title of their internships or their project work, and they sometimes do not know the meaning of the words they have written. So it's very important for you to know the meaning of the words, know the context in which the project or the internship was done, know the key findings, know the process that you have used to do the activity that you're supposed to do during your project and internship work, and what have you learned from those efforts. The last thing, and that's a very fascinating thing, is the real world sort of relationship with your UG degree. Now, this is a funny thing because many a times students are asked questions which a person not doing that UG degree may, or PG degree, may expect that person pursuing that degree to know, but the reality may not be so. For example, suppose we asked an electronic student, how does an air condition work, or how does a radio work, or how does a laptop work, or how does a television work? Now, from a third person point of view, these questions may be very basic questions, right? They would anticipate a person pursuing such degrees to know the answers of these questions, wherein the person who is actually pursuing these degrees may find these questions to be very large, very complex to answer, and so on. And yet I would suggest that it's important for us to at least have idea about things which are in news. So for example, let's say if your interest is in finance, or you come from finance degree or economics degree, it would be advisable to know what are bitcoins, like how does it work? Similarly, if you come from a computer science background, it's important to know about certain technologies being talked about in the newspaper lately. Right. So figure out what are some of the things related with your degree, which has been the news items, which a common person or a particularly well-read person, such would be the case in reference to IIM professors, would have gone through. And if they are finding someone, let's say from a biology background, and if they want to sort of figure out what is the conceptual depth of the individual, then they may ask these real world questions. So make sure that you track what is going on in the news and what are the elements of those news or the contemporary issues are related with your UG degree, and develop a certain degree of clarity about those ongoing issues. Now, after academics, let's look into the professional degree, right? The professional rather work. So when we say professional work, it means simply your work experience. And what we need to do to prepare about our work experience is to sort of categorize things again in a manner which gives you a broad idea about everything with absolute degree of clarity. So let's start with your role. So what are your responsibilities? What skills do you use in delivering on those responsibilities? What technologies do you use? And which are the stakeholders with whom you interact? For example, do you interact with clients? Do you interact with government officials? Do you interact with general society? Do you interact primarily with your own colleagues in your own company? So your responsibilities, your skills, your technology, the technologies on which you are working, and the stakeholders. The next thing to be kept in mind in this, as much as possible, try and collect certain numbers, names, the kind of impact that you have sort of brought with your work, and the kind of projects that you have done, name of certain clients, because in that way, if you mention these things, it clearly illustrates as to what has been broadly the size of your work, or what has been the impact of your work, and so on. Merely using adjectives to, in a sense, inflate the image of your work may not be the right approach. Right. So let's say, for example, if you have work experience in sales, if you mention that I have done this much value of sales in the last 1 year, or I have sort of brought these many clients for my organization, it will automatically indicate the success of your work or your effort. So please try and bring numbers, try and note down numbers, names, the kind of impact that you've brought on your company through your work. The next thing is to read about your department. So as you would understand that in every company, there are multiple departments, right? So what does your department do? Right? What are the kind of roles, which other departments does it support, and so on. And the next and slightly more important thing in comparison to department is the vertical. So vertical, in a sense, is within a company, there may be many product lines. So within which product lines are you working, right? And what are the sort of major products or services offered within that product line? The next thing to read about is to know about the company. Very important. Basic history. What is the name of CEO, MD, fundamentals about the financials of the company, the latest financial, what is the ranking of your company? Suppose it's an MNC or a very large company, then what is its rank within its category? For example, if you are working at TCS, then what is the rank of TCS within the Indian IT companies by revenue, and what are some of the fundamental values that your companies stand for. So those things would, of course, if you want to read about values, you can go to your company's website, and probably on the very home page on about section, you'll find all these details. Also, you may like to read about what are the things for which your company has been famous in the recent past, right? So had there been a major merger, had there been an acquisition, and so on. So has your company launched a major product or a major service, or there anything else for which your company has been in news? Please read about those facts. The last thing is look into the whole industry. So let's say, again, I'll take the example of TCS. So TCS would, let's say, fall into the IT industry, right? Or software services industry. So what is the market size of the whole software services industry in India or maybe in the world? What is the market share of your own company? What has been the growth rate of the industry? What has been growth rate of your own company? And what has been, any major merger or acquisition in the recent past? Pretty much what you have learned or read about your company, you need to now expand that to an industry level. So read about that. You can easily Google, you can write down the name of the industry in Google and, filter it out by last 1 year, and you can read about those things. It's very important. It gives an indication. If you are aware of these things, it gives an indication to any interview panel that you are not only sort of involved with your own day-to-day responsibilities, but you are also in a general sense aware about what is going on in the world or in the country about your company or about your industry. Now, after having covered the work experience part, let's now look at societal and environmental aspects. Now, here, when I'm saying environmental, I'm not referring exclusively to ecological. When I'm saying environmental, it means things around you, everything: society, religion, politics, technology, everything else. Among the students that I have interviewed, and I've interviewed thousands of students over the last 10, 15 years, I can say this is the typical, weakest link. So I would suggest that you pay special attention to this specific theme of the knowledge preparation. So I think one thing that I must emphasize here is, why would someone working in IT industry is expected to know about things, which are beyond IT industry? Well, simply because suppose in 20 years time, you're going to lead a company, or you want to start your own company after pursuing your MBA, or maybe after 5 years only. You are not going to do it in vacuum. You do it in a certain demographical, political, economical, financial environment. So unless you are aware about those things, how are you expected to lead major companies in future? Because that is always uncertain. So it's very, very important that you have certain degree of awareness. Now, I'm not asking you to prepare it at UPSC level, not at all. In fact, all that you have to have is some fundamental degree of awareness. So India profile, that means what is the Indian demography, population, literacy rate, per capita income, and so on. Polity, that means how many seats are there in Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha, which party has how many seats. Economy, that means what is the size of economy, what has been growth rate, and we'll come back to economy in a short while, in a moment's time. Basic geography, right? How many states are there, major rivers in the areas that you come from. Similarly, your state profile. So what is the population of your state? I'll give you a fun example. In many interviews, I asked from the students who belong to Uttar Pradesh, I asked them, what is the population of Uttar Pradesh? The shocking answer varied from anything from 10 lakhs to 50 crore. That was quite surprising. And of course, we all understand that the UP's population is around 21, 22 crores. So it's very important for us to have some basic idea about your state profile. Similar things that we have discussed about, at country level, pretty much those things you need to work at state level. Now, where can you read about these things? Again, I would say that you don't have to go to an UPSC level preparation, not at all. You can always open the India Wikipedia profile, and you can go to the blue box or the blue background box that you would find on the right hand side. It will have all the important facts mentioned in a very, very sort of bulleted manner. And if those bulleted points gives you enough idea about what those things are talking about, you are more than welcome to memorize them. And if you want to have a certain degree of detailed understanding of the same, you can always look at the detailed discussion mentioned on the left side. Now, it is true that not every Wikipedia article can be taken as gospel's truth. In fact, there can always be an opinion mentioned there. But at your level, the level at which we are supposed to have the awareness for the purposes of IIM interview, I think this is a reasonably dependable source of information. I would recommend you to do the same. Now, apart from India profile and the state profile, that state that you belong to, you also need to work upon current affairs. Now, one of the best ways to look at current affairs is to look at the newspaper which you're going to get towards the end of December or towards the first week of January. Mostly, all newspapers will publish major events of 2021 or 2020 or 2022, whichever year that you are going to appear for the IIM interviews. And they would have typically compiled all the major events, major people, or major places which have been in the news in the previous year. So if you can get your hands on the newspapers from, let's say, 25th December to 5th of January, you can find a very handy compilation of all the things that you need to be ready with. Also, at the same time, I'm sure that if you're serious about IIM interviews and MBA interviews, you must start spending 1 hour every day on reading about the important issues which are in news. So you can look at major events, you can look at regulations. Regulations means also, let's say, I'm referring to policies or major schemes launched by the government. Read about them. Major people who are in the news, and those persons could be from business world, economy world, politics world, political world, religious world, and so on. And events, typically you'll find a lot of events being in news in the Google. So you are highly recommended to be ready with that. Now, the last aspect, second last aspect of your knowledge preparation should be on the business and economy. Now, why I'm mentioning business and economy is simply because as an candidate for MBA degree, which is having a business word as the most important word, in the expansion of that acronym, you're supposed to have a reasonable awareness towards business and economy, right? I'm saying with all care, I'm saying reasonable awareness, right? Now, you're not supposed to have a knowledge equivalent to an MBA degree holder before pursuing that MBA degree, right? But certain basic facts you must know, or you are highly recommended to know. So first thing is economic terms. So GDP, GNP, inflation. What are these things? What is the definition of GDP? What is the definition of GNP? What is the definition of inflation? What is the meaning of GST? Is it a direct tax or indirect tax, right? Broad, important sort of definitions. And when I'm saying this, I'm referring only to those students who are from non-economics background, right? For students who come from BA in economics or MA in economic background, of course, they are supposed to have in-depth idea about these things. But for those students who come from, let's say, a science background or non-economics related humanities background, they're supposed to have fair idea about all these important terms. And at the same time, the next thing is to know the values of these terms, if at all these terms can be given a value. So for example, let me just put it this way. What is the definition of GDP and how much is the GDP of India, right? At the same time, what is the growth rate of GDP in India, right? Or which are the countries, top 2-3 countries which have highest GDP, right? At the same time, what is purchasing power parity, and what is the value of India's GDP in terms of PPP or the nominal value. So important economic facts as well as the values associated with those definitions and facts. Similarly, as a as a budding MBA aspirant, or a serious MBA aspirant, I should say, you need to have a fair idea about basic financial or management terms. So such as what is revenue, what is gross profit, what is a market cap, what is a unicorn, what is the definition of unicorn. So these are the things that you need to, collect and be aware of. The next thing that you must know are certain terms coming from statistics. These are very frequently occurring terms when you go and pursue your management degree, or these are very important terms which are used in sort of taking any data-driven decision. In futures to come. So you need to gather definition of some 10, 12 important statistical terms, such as what is standard deviation and what does it mean actually? What is its uses? Similarly, you may know the meaning of mean, mode, and median, but what is its what is the uses of these words, and in what different contexts do we use mean or mode or median and so on? You also need to be aware of are the major business news. So that aspect we have partially covered in our previous discussion as well. Rather the discussion on the previous topic, that is about your professional background, but you need to gather information about major business news. So what has been some major mergers, or which company has bought which other company, which company has launched some India level or international level product, or which companies have been renamed, or which companies have renamed their products. So for example, metaverse you must have heard of, and so on. So gather important business news. Now again, the good thing is that most of the publications, and I'm sure most of the major coaching companies, and at least Career Launcher does that, publish or share these facts in a compiled version at the end of the year. So you can always access that, and you'll find those facts to be very, very useful for your preparation towards IIM interviews. Now, the other important thing that you need to work upon are the things related with your goals and plans. I'm not sure what is the probability of you being asked why you want to pursue MBA, but suppose for while answering any question, you are planning to share some of your goals, some of your targets, some of your dreams. So it's also important for us to actually gather some of some facts around those goals or those dreams or those targets. So for example, if you want to mention that you want to work in video gaming industry in future, well, it's important to gather certain terms, important terms from the video gaming industry, or certain sort of buzzwords which are going around regarding video gaming industry, right? At the same time, and that is what I was referring to, the second point that you can see on the slide here, that is about news. What are the news? What are the facts? Or who are some of the great people who have set precedences, who have set trends within that area where you want to go? If you want to talk about your dream company, I'm not saying you should or should not. That is a different that's a discussion for an absolutely different day. But let's say for some reason you want to talk about your dream company as well. It's so important to know some basic facts about your dream company. For example, when it was established, what are its major product lines, where it is headquartered, who is its CEO, what is its market cap, what is its revenue, and so on. Now, let me just sort of summarize everything that we have discussed. So of course, during an IIM MBA interview, you'll be assessed on your personality aspects and you'll be assessed on your knowledge aspects. A lot of students focus a lot on the communication side or a clarity side of it, which is very important thing to do anyway. But we have seen students ignoring the knowledge or the fact gathering aspect of their preparation towards IIM interviews, and it's very, very important. And hence, today's video was emphasizing that. And we mentioned that we need to work on your personal background. You need to work on your environment, on things around your surroundings, society, religion, technology, and so on. You need to work on your work experience. You need to work on your academics. You need to work upon your goals, and you need to gather facts around them. What is my recommendation for you for, if suppose you're watching this video in the month of, a couple of months before IIM interviews, then my suggestion to you would be to first categorize everything that we have gone through this video for yourself. Write down those things. For example, if I mentioned that you need to be ready with within academics, you need to be ready with theory, right? So list down what 3-4 important chapters you're going to read, what are the 100 definitions you're going to read, or 100 typical questions which are asked you're going to read and understand them. Similarly, the second thing that you need to work upon is spend 1 to 2 hours every day on the fact gathering itself, on information gathering, on developing your conceptual clarity. right? The next thing is that many times when we suggest these things for students to do, they end up sort of getting sort of too deep into these things, and by doing that, if they, let's say, get into academics, they will start ignoring the other aspects of the knowledge preparation. My recommendation is that first cover fundamentals of everything, and then if you want to take a deep dive, please do so. It's important to understand that suppose if you're not able to answer a difficult question, the chances for, let's say, a negative marking for a negative mark for a wrong answer. Now that negative mark for answering a question wrong, if the question is very complex, then the negative mark is going to be probably a little more benign, little lesser. But if you're not able to answer a basic question, a fundamental question, right, then it might be problematic for you. So for example, if you come from a science, that is maths and physics background, and if you're asked the same question which I asked earlier, what is third law of thermodynamics, and if you're not able to answer, then that might give you a lot of negative mark. Wherein if you're not able to answer a very high-end question, it's okay, you may suffer, but suffering may not be that much. So important, first cover the fundamentals of everything and then take a deep dive into everything. The last thing is that I said it in the somewhere in the middle of my video today, that go through the compiled question from previous years as to what kind of questions were asked from students of certain backgrounds. So for example, what questions were asked from economics background student, from electronics background student, from history background student, from media background student, from medicine background student, and so on. It'll give you a sort of a lot of clarity to figure it out. I have seen all those questions, and based on that only we have categorized things today. All right. Now, the last point is a warning to you. Now, I've seen many students taking certain Facebook posts or Instagram posts, or experiences of individual students or aspirants very seriously. So if some student and some part of time would have answered certain question in a certain manner, the new age aspirants end up taking those answers as gospel truth. Please don't do that. The answer to many questions, particularly sort of your personality assessment questions, are to be seen from a very individualistic perspective, right? So if you are asked what are your strengths and weaknesses and so on and so forth, don't go for a run-of-the-mill or a very repeated answer, or an answer that you have read that this is the best answer. There is no safalta ka churan in a very, very ready-made manner as far as interviews are concerned. It's very personalized. So work on your own attributes, talk to your mentors, sort of talk to students who have appeared for interviews earlier, refer standard sources, go through questions from the previous years, and I'm sure you will do very well during the IIM interview. So all the best to you. If you want some mentoring, guidance, and so on the same, you can call us on the number given here, or you can follow this channel for more videos like this. Thank you very much, and all the best.